Iraq has been pleading with Turkey to increase the flow of water downstream along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, as both countries face droughts and tensions over resource management. Baghdad has made comments that the dam constructed in neighboring countries impact its water levels in the rivers, and by doing so, causes shortages. The two countries have been discussing quantities of water arriving in Iraq through the Tigris and Euphrates from Turkey. The issue of managing water resources has raised tensions between the Middle Eastern countries. Iraq has seen 3 years of successive droughts and has cut in half agricultural areas for its 42 million inhabitants. Water reserves have dropped 60% compared to last year, also adding that the water levels arriving from the Tigris and the Euphrates were around a third of over the past century, according to the statistics. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights warns of an imminent environmental disaster that threatens food, security, and a humanitarian catastrophe that would deprive nearly 2.5 million people of the Euphrates River water in multiple areas in the region. The Euphrates water level has reached a critical low compared to previous months. This development ignited people's fears and concerns over environmental and service risks to the population and the significant damage to agricultural land if the Turkish government continues to cut Syria's share of water, human rights organization later stated. Turkey has been reported as cutting off water levels since April 2nd of 2022 by reducing the amount of the Euphrates River water, which enters the northeastern of Syria's dams, as stated by the Office of Energy and Communications on April 4th. Environmental specialists had confirmed this statement during the International Water Forum in North and East Syria, which was held in late September of 2021, that the Turkish Gap project, which consists of 19 dams on the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, most of which are located in the territory of Kurdistan, has led to 4,000 villages and their residents to evacuate due to drought. Iraq is battling its worst drought in decades. Lack of rainfall and poor resource management has left communities that depend on the Tigris and Euphrates devoid of the water they need to survive. As a temporary solution, authorities in the region drained part of the Mosul Dam reservoir in the country's Kurdistan region this January to keep crops from drying out. As it turns out though, out of that drained area, an ancient city emerged, and with just days to examine the area before the water levels came back, archaeologists successfully mapped what they believe to have been a major city in the Mitanni Empire, built 3,400 years ago. People in the area claimed they knew the city was there when the dam was created in the 1980s, but the buildings and artifacts that survived the city's destruction in an earthquake around 3500 BCE had never been fully investigated. Parts of the city first arose from the depths during a major drought in 2018. During that brief time, researchers were able to explore a lost palace with massive 22-foot high walls, some 6 feet thick, and discovered remains of wall paintings in vibrant shades of red and blue. However, the archaeologists ultimately didn't have enough time to sufficiently map the city before the waters returned, so when the water levels fell again this year, a research team was assembled in a matter of days. Researchers obtained short-notice funding through the University of Freiburg to examine as much of the city as possible before it was resubmerged. Now archaeologists have a clearer picture of what this ancient city might have been like, thanks to the team's mapping of numerous large buildings and uncovering hundreds of artifacts. Among the buildings found were an industrial complex, a fortification with wall and towers, and a multi-story storage building. The Kurdistan Archaeology Organization adds that the excavation results show that the site was an important center in the Mitanni Empire The team was impressed by how well many of the walls, sometimes reaching almost 10 feet high, were preserved, despite being submerged for years upon years. An earthquake was said to have destroyed the city, and turned the upper parts of the walls into rubble, which subsequently buried and protected the lower parts of the city for centuries. Also well preserved 5 ceramic vessels containing over 100 tablets, some still in their clay envelopes. In a statement by archaeologists, they described the underwater survival of the unfired clay tablets as being close to a miracle to have survived. The team hopes that the tablets hold some information which would shed more light on the city and its history. It's also said to be possible that the site could be the ancient city of Zakuku, a major hub in the Mitanni Empire, which lasted roughly 1500 to 1350 BCE. One of a number of kingdoms and states founded by the Indo-Iranians in Mesopotamia and Syria. At its peak, the empire spanned just over 600 miles, extending from the Zagros Mountains to the Mediterranean Sea. In the empire's early years, the Mitannis fought with Egypt over control of Syria until a truce was reached with the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose around 1420 BCE. The Mitannis fell to the Hittite Empire around 1360 BCE, and the Assyrians soon took over the area. Drought is expected to continue to plague the region. That will be a disaster for locals, but could also present other opportunities for archaeologists. There's plenty left to discover, as stated by officials, saying that there are more than 100 underwater sites in the eastern Tigris area alone. The Euphrates Tunnel was an ancient passageway built between 2180 and 2160 BCE under the river Euphrates to connect the two halves of the city of Babylon in Mesopotamia. The existence of the Euphrates Tunnel has not been confirmed, however. A description of the tunnel as being built used by Queen Semiramis is given by Diodorus in 50 BCE in the Bibliothea Historica. And a description of the tunnel reads as follows. After all these in a low ground in Babylon, she sunk a place for a pond, 4 square, every square being 300 furlongs, lined with brick and cemented with brimstone, and the whole 5 and 30 feet in depth. Into this having first turned the river, she then made a passage in the form of a vault, from one palace to another, whose arches were built firm and strong, and plastered all over on both sides with bitumen, 4 cubits thick. The walls of this vault were 20 bricks in thickness, and 12 feet high, beside and above the arches, and the breadth of it was 15 feet. This piece of work being finished in 260 days, the river was turned into its ancient channel once again, so that the river flowing over the whole work, Semiramis, could go from one place to the other without passing over the river. She made likewise 2 brazen gates at either end of the vault, which continued to the time of the Persian Empire. Bibliothea Historica, book number 2. Along with that passage, there is also another one, written by Philostratus in 250 CE, which also describes the tunnel's construction in the life of Apollonius of Tyana. And it reads, "And Babylon, it is cut asunder by the river Euphrates into halves of similar shape, and there passes underneath the river an extraordinary bridge, which joins together by an unseen passage the palaces on either bank, for it is said that a woman was formerly queen of those parts, who spanned the river underneath in a manner in which no river was ever bridged before. For she got stones, it is said, and copper and pitch, and all that men have discovered for use in masonry, underwater, and she piled these up along the banks of the river. Then she diverted the stream into lakes, and as soon as the river was dry, She dug down to 2 fathoms and made a hollow tunnel into the palaces on either bank, like a subterranean grotto, and she roofed it on a level with the bed of the stream. The foundations were thus made stable, and also the walls of the tunnel. But as the pitch required water in order to set as hard as stone, the Euphrates was let in, again on the roof while it was still soft, and so the junction stood solid. Life of Apollonius of Tyana, Book 1, 2, and 3. The tunnel allegedly spanned 12 feet high and 15 feet wide. It is presumed that it was used by pedestrians and horse-driven chariots and connected a major temple with the royal palace on the other side of the shore. It was supposedly lined with brick and waterproofed with asphalt, and as of recently, reports of local historians have been discovering strange tunnels and passageways beneath the dried-up parts of the Euphrates and Tigris. Could this ancient tunnel be what they are discovering? Strangely enough, most reports on this are said to have been suppressed, with local news in the areas asking to make a story out of it, but the mainstream and government officials turning it down. Another claim to have been found is a massive oil deposit and gold underneath the river, with limited video footage and reports of farmers and locals stating that they have found gold flowing down what remains of the river along with oil, claiming a cover-up by the government and officials, keeping the findings under wraps. Along with that, there's apparently been a discovery of a massive gold deposit located in Turkey with reports of a rough estimation of being worth 7 billion GPU, although like the Euphrates claims, it has also been kept quiet as well. Something strange about this discovery, however, brings us to a writing in the Quran, which states, "The hour will not occur until the Euphrates recedes, uncovering a mountain of gold, over which people will fight. 99 out of every 100 will be killed, and every man among them will say, 'I might be the one who survives.' Whether or not that be the case is up for debate. However, that being said, if there was indeed an oil reserve and mountain of gold beneath our feet, with the adding tension of drought in neighboring countries, a discovery of such magnitude would certainly cause conflict, and perhaps even war. There has been a video surfacing lately of an apparent local who was out walking the dried up riverbank when he came across a crack in the bedrock and hearing noises coming from it. In the video, he films the hole and captures audio of what appears to be something screaming and moaning while dragging chains. Take a listen. After reviewing the footage, many have been speculating if it has been altered, or if it in fact is real. Whatever the case may be, it is quite puzzling. What makes the video even more intriguing is what is written in the Bible, which states, "Saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, Loose the 4 angels, which are bound in the great river Euphrates." What does this passage mean exactly? Well, according to scholars, it means, these are the words of a voice which John the Apostle hears, coming from the 4 horns of the golden altar, in Revelations 9:13. This voice commands the 6th angel with a trumpet to free the 4 angels who are held captive in the Euphrates River, the ancient boundary between Assyria and Israel, allowing or announcing each one to come forth from their imprisonment, to destroy a third of mankind during the Revelations period. The region of the Euphrates, where these 4 angels are bound, has a notorious relationship to the origin of human sin, and the first murder which was committed by Cain, presumably not far from the Garden of Eden. It is also the area in which the first war confederacy took place in that region, and the ancient king Nimrod began his kingdom there, as well as Babylonian idolatry, and presumably ancient technology. With all these discoveries and claims coming from the river system, one has to question, what's really going on here, and what will be uncovered? Something strange is happening here, and only time will tell what happens next. Thanks for watching. Till next time.